diplomacy juggernaut's premise. The vast chamber of the Galactic Council hummed with tension. Representatives from 1,000 worlds shifted uneasily in their anti-gravity pods, appendages twitching and sensory organs straining. At the centre of the amphitheatre, a holographic display flickered ominously, showing the steady approach of the Void Swarm, a ravenous hive mind that had already consumed 3 star systems. Ambassador Zara Chen took a deep breath, her dark eyes scanning the assembled aliens. As the sole human representative, she felt the weight of expectation pressing down on her shoulders. Humans had a reputation to uphold, after all. Esteemed members of the Council, Zara began, her voice carried and translated by the chamber's advanced acoustics, we face an unprecedented threat. The Void Swarm cares nothing for our borders, our differences, or our individual strengths. It sees only food. A ripple of agitation passed through the assembly. The Arcturian delegation's tentacles writhed in distress, while the crystalline quartz collective chimed in discordant harmony. The hegemony will not stand idle while this threat looms, rumbled Corvash, the imposing representative of the silicon-based warriors. We will meet this swarm with force, crush it beneath our might. Zara suppressed a sigh, always with the crushing. With respect, Ambassador Corvash, she said, choosing her words carefully, the swarm has already demonstrated its ability to adapt to and overcome purely military solutions. We need a more nuanced approach. Nuance, scoffed Zixatara of the Hive Syndicate, her mandibles clicking rapidly. What good is nuance against a force that devours worlds? This was the crux of the problem, Zara knew. Each species, each faction, saw the threat through the lens of their own experiences and abilities. What they needed was a perspective that could encompass them all. Friends, Zara said, infusing her voice with warmth and conviction, let us consider for a moment not what makes us different, but what unites us. Every being in this chamber, from the eldest Quartz Elder to the youngest Arcturian larva, shares one fundamental drive, the will to live, to grow, to thrive. She paused, letting her words sink in. The chamber had grown quiet, all attention focused on the small human at its centre. The Void Swarm, for all its terrifying power, is driven by that same fundamental urge. It consumes because it must, because that is how it survives. But what if we could offer it an alternative? Murmurs of confusion rippled through the assembly. Zara pressed on, her mind racing ahead, piecing together the fragments of a plan. The Quartz Collective, she said, gesturing to the shimmering crystals. Your people can survive in the harshest environments, drawing energy from stellar radiation. The Hive Syndicate's bioengineering is unparalleled in its ability to adapt life forms to new conditions, and the hegemony's mastery of silicon-based technologies could be the key to interfacing with the swarm's hive mind. Excitement began to build in Zara's chest as she saw the sparks of understanding ignite across the chamber. This was what humans did best, not just negotiating between existing positions, but forging entirely new paths forward. Together, Zara continued, her voice rising with passion, we could offer the Void Swarm a choice. Not extinction, not subjugation, but evolution. A chance to transcend its current form and become something greater. A symbiotic part of our galactic community, rather than its destroyer. The chamber erupted in a cacophony of voices, appendages, and pheromones. Some delegates chittered excitedly, while others buzzed with skepticism. But none could deny the audacity of the proposal. Over the next solar cycles, Zara found herself at the centre of a whirlwind of activity. She shuttled between delegations, smoothing ruffled feathers, sometimes literally, bridging cultural gaps, and weaving together the strands of a plan so ambitious it bordered on the insane. There were setbacks, of course. The hegemony initially balked at sharing their most advanced technology. The Hive Syndicate and the Quartz Collective squabbled over whose adaptations would form the base of the new symbiotic form. And always, in the background, The countdown ticked on as the void swarm drew ever closer. But slowly, steadily, progress was made. Zara's days blurred into one another as she mediated disputes, offered creative solutions, and sometimes simply provided a sympathetic ear to frustrated delegates. Her nights were spent poring over xenobiology texts, studying the intricacies of silicon-based computing, and trying to fathom the alien psychology of a planet-devouring hive mind. It was during one such late-night study session that Zara had her breakthrough. Bleary-eyed from hours of reading, she found herself staring at a diagram of the void swarm's neural network. Something about its structure nagged at her, a familiarity she couldn't quite place. And then it hit her. The swarm's network bore a striking resemblance to the human brain's neural pathways, just on a vastly larger scale. What if the swarm wasn't just a mindless force of destruction? What if it was, in its own way, conscious? Energized by this new insight, Zara called an emergency session of the council. As the bleary-eyed, or equivalent sensory organ, delegates assembled, she laid out her theory. "We've been thinking of the swarm as a problem to be solved," she explained, her words tumbling out in her excitement. "But what if it's a potential partner waiting to be engaged? Its neural structure suggests a capacity for complex thought, for self-awareness. We need to attempt communication." The chamber erupted in a mix of excitement, skepticism, and outright fear. Communicate with the void swarm? It seemed impossible, ludicrous even. But as Zara fielded questions and explained her reasoning, a sense of cautious hope began to build. The plan that emerged was daring in its scope. A joint task force would be assembled, combining the hegemony's advanced technology, the Hive Syndicate's biological interfaces, and the Quartz Collective's radiation-resistant communications array. They would attempt to establish contact with the swarm, not through traditional means, but through a direct neural link. And at the center of it all would be Zara. As the architect of the plan, and the species with the closest neural similarity to the swarm, she would serve as the primary intermediary. The preparations were intense. Zara underwent a series of biomechanical augmentations, her nervous system enhanced to interface with the alien technology. She spent countless hours in simulations, training her mind to withstand the potential shock of connecting with a vast alien intellect. As the day of the attempt drew near, Zara found herself plagued by doubts. What if she was wrong? What if the swarm was truly mindless or worse, malevolently intelligent? What if her hubris doomed not just herself, but the entire galaxy? It was Corvash, the once belligerent hegemony ambassador, who surprisingly provided comfort. "You have shown us a path where we saw none," the silicon-based being rumbled. "Whatever comes, you have already achieved a victory in uniting us. The hegemony stands with you, Ambassador Chen." Similar sentiments were echoed by the other delegates. Whatever their differences, they had been united by this human's vision and determination. Win or lose, they would face the void swarm together. The day of the attempt arrived. Zara stood at the heart of a vast array of technology, a blend of organic and inorganic components from a dozen worlds. As the final connections were made, she closed her eyes and took a deep breath. "Initiating contact in 3, 2, 1. The universe exploded behind Zara's eyes. Her consciousness expanded, hurtling across vast gulfs of space. She felt herself fragmenting, her sense of self threatening to dissolve in an ocean of alien thoughts and sensations. But she held on, drawing on her training and the strength lent to her by the united will of the Galactic Council. Gradually, the chaos began to coalesce into something comprehensible. The void swarm was vast, ancient, and hungry. But it was also curious and, in its own alien way, lonely. Zara felt its surprise at being contacted, its initial impulse to consume giving way to a tentative desire to understand. With painstaking effort, Zara began to communicate. She shared images of diverse worlds living in harmony, of technologies and biologies intertwining to create wonders greater than the sum of their parts. She conveyed the concept of symbiosis, of mutual growth and benefit. The swarm's responses were alien and often terrifying, but Zara persevered. Hours stretched into days as the two minds engaged in a dance of concepts and emotions beyond ordinary language. Finally, after what seemed like an eternity, Zara felt a shift. The swarm had made a decision. With a monumental effort, she pulled her consciousness back, returning to her physical form. As Zara's eyes fluttered open, she found herself surrounded by anxious faces and other sensory appendages of the Galactic Council representatives. Her voice was hoarse as she spoke the words that would change the course of galactic history. They've agreed. The Void Swarm will come not as conquerors, but as allies. They wish to learn, to grow, to become part of something greater than themselves. The chamber erupted in a cacophony of joy, relief, and lingering disbelief. Zara felt herself sway, exhaustion finally overtaking her. As she was supported by her alien colleagues, she realized that this was only the beginning. The integration of the Void Swarm into galactic society would be a monumental task, fraught with challenges and setbacks. But they had taken the first crucial step. Where there had been only the threat of destruction, now there was the promise of a new future. In the cycles that followed, Zara found herself busier than ever. She shuttled between worlds, helping to establish the protocols for the swarm's arrival and integration. There were fears to be assuaged, cultural misunderstandings to be smoothed over, and entirely new fields of science and philosophy to be developed. But everywhere she went, Zara was greeted with a mix of awe and gratitude. The story of the human diplomat who had communicated with the Void Swarm spread across the galaxy, growing with each retelling. In schools across 1,000 worlds, young beings of all species studied the art of human-style diplomacy, hoping to one day bridge the gaps between vastly different minds. And Zara? She took it all in stride, always looking ahead to the next challenge, the next opportunity to bring different beings together in understanding. For that, she knew, was the true strength of humanity. Not physical might or technological prowess, but the ability to see the common threads that bound all life together, and to weave those threads into a tapestry of cosmic harmony. As she stood on the observation deck of a hegemony cruiser, watching the first tendrils of the transformed Void Swarm make contact with a Quartz collective outpost, Zara felt a profound sense of hope. The galaxy was vast and full of wonders, and with understanding and compassion, there was no challenge too great to overcome. The human diplomat smiled, already thinking about the next frontier, the next seemingly impossible gulf to bridge. After all, in a universe of infinite diversity, there would always be a need for those who could forge connections and build understanding. And humanity, it seemed, was uniquely suited to that task.